I'm here.
Commissioner Gillespie,
Here.
Commissioner Lustolo, Commissioner Nakina,
Here.
Commissioner Mills,
Here.
Commissioner Rushing,
Here.
Commissioner Comstock,
Here.
Commissioner Smith,
He's coming.
Commissioner Shield,
Here.
Commissioner Adel, not here, Commissioner Lyon.
Here. Approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Is there any chance of speaking into the microphone? I can barely hear you. We'd like to take this up on the video, please.
It's going to be really hard to get the speakers loud enough for that without feedback. Sorry, our microphones are they're worse than the board of supervisors now.
Just say it. Just say it.
Okay, so we're looking for an approval of the minutes.
Madam Chairman, move to approve the minutes.
All second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we'll take public comment of anything not on the agenda for today. Do we have any public comment? Okay, consent agenda. Review and authorize payment of expenses for November 2014.
Madam Chair, if there's no discussion, I would move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we are going to now continue the public hearing regarding the service review for the Watershed Protection District. And I'll turn it over to John.
Thank you. I have a couple things to say at the beginning. Last month, as you recall, I distributed a draft service review, which the county had not commented on. You all reviewed it. We held a public hearing, and we continued it to this month. Last week, I emailed you a copy of the county's comments that were delivered to me on the 11th, as you requested. And it's the ones with the colored text in it. Every computer has different colors, but it's that one. Yesterday or 2 days ago, I delivered to you a clean copy where I went through every county comment and either accepted it or rejected it, or in one way modified it. So by and large, the county's comments were they were accepted. There are some spots within the service review that they either might have been rejected or accepted, but there was still controversy over that I still need to talk to you, or I put in some clarification. Those you will find in the bold text on this document that you have before you. Does everyone have a copy of that? I know there's a few extra copies there. I wanted the committee, the MSR committee and the county to have a copy of that especially.
We're talking about this.
That document there. This embodies all of the comments to date. The black comments that you see are dark comments, dark italic comments are those that are my comments. And there are, as I sent to you in the email, that there were several pages that we notably needed to look at.
John, would you make sure we're looking at the right document? The title is MSR Final Second Draft County Comments.
No, this is the one that Ed just showed is the one we're looking at. That was the one that was emailed 2 days ago.
Okay.
Is it the public review draft revision to December 11th?
Yes.
Yeah.
December 11th, that's the one for the public hearing. Clean copy, it's relatively clean, even though I added a few things. That's what we're looking at. So that includes the county's comments, the committee's comments, and my comments that are in bold. That would be the only change. And what I propose I do, rather than saying it now, is that we schedule the public, or with the hearings, that we open it up and discuss each page, each of these 5 or 6, 7, 8 pages separately, and just have an interactive discussion. And then the commission would vote on what language should remain or not remain. as well as there may be folks here with additional comments or clarifications that we could place into the document. And then I have a resolution before you, and I want to tell you before we even start that really doing the MSR does not conclude the process with respect to the water management district. The end game is the sphere of influence, and this is establishing the district boundary. There are several alternatives, and there's also some special legislation, and I need to see how that'll be a question that I'll be working with Scott on, is if LAFCo really has the authority to do the sphere of influence, and I don't think he and I would disagree that I believe that LAFCo does have the authority, but I want to know for sure before we go on, because the sphere of influence was established for the flood control district. That was in 85 or something like that. So we have to update the sphere of influence. But anyway, that's another issue. We'll get into that later. Remember that when we develop the sphere of influence, we're going to need to develop a work program of the content of the sphere of influence report, because this is a pretty unique agency. And the resolution also provides some direction for me on developing a plan and putting it into next year's sphere of influence, a work plan, and putting it into the next year's budget, because we've got some other priorities that we need to finish up for this year, namely the City of Clear Lake and fire review. So with that, I guess that concludes my initial comments. And
Thank you, John.
there.
Anything from the commissioners before we open the public hearing? Right, okay. Go ahead and open the public hearing. Does the committee want to say anything before we start going through some of the comments that John wants to review?
I haven't neglected to mention the committee had a report which you were sent about a week ago. It's online with everything else. And that when I prepared my responses to the county's comments, I took into account that committee report.
Okay,
So I did do it in a vacuum.
great.
Okay.
The committee, anything at this point? Or should we-
Well, sure, I'd like to speak if I may.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are a couple of issues that we had with the final comments. The rest of the document, once John went through it and updated it, which you will then consider in detail as you go through it. There's only one major issue from my perspective, and that has to do with the what is now on page 8, the third paragraph of the second revision of the public hearing draft. And that has to do with the county's comment that because the permit, what we're talking about here is the stormwater permit, is more specific and leaves little or no room for interpretation of implementation measures. There has been no need for the advisory committee meeting. In the documentation that you all received and that was posted on the website, on the website, we did the original stormwater agreement with the joint powers agreement between the cities and the county. That's online at the Clean Program website, and also bylaws of the advisory council that were formed by that agreement. And in the report that we prepared for you on this page, you'll find that there are 8 substantiating claims made in support of our objection to that particular response. We do not believe that the council can be just ignored. It is an agreement between 3 legislative bodies to comply with the state permit, and it has legislative authority, at least a ministerial authority, to implement the program in all 3 jurisdictions. I think that from what I read, it indicated to me that the actual administration doesn't understand the permit, which doesn't surprise me because we have not had a council meeting that I've been to that includes an administrative representative. So there's just a gap in communications there. What I handed out to you earlier was a report, was a monthly newsletter that I've been producing for the advisory council since the early part of 2012 as the appointed representative for the appointed volunteer providing public education and outreach and public involvement and participation legal requirements in the permit. So every month I've sent this out. There are over 110 reviewers and readers of that newsletter. Many of them state and regional agency representatives as well as local agencies, your staffs, and so forth. In addition, I'm an honorary member of the California Stormwater Quality Association's Stormwater Subcommittee. I'm engaged in a monthly telephone conference call with over 190 municipalities across the state of California, all of them struggling with how to implement a stormwater permit. The State Water Boards issued this permit in February of 2013, but all of the regional boards are now having difficulty, and so every one of the rural agencies with this permit is kind of on hold. And until they come up with their decisions about how we're supposed to monitor the lake to show that we're complying with the TMDL for nutrients, for example, there's not much we can do. So although there are tasks on the program, on the permit requirement for year one, which has already elapsed, all of your staffs are doing they're doing fine work. There's no problem. The continuation of the existing permit program is implemented in the same way it has been for 9 years. It's just that there are really different new requirements in the permit, and as far as I know, the advisory council has not yet really gotten together with your staffs to address what those need for the coming year. And so it's a very important function of your compliance. Every part of that permit has to do with what we need to do to protect the watershed, restore the beneficial uses of the lake, and meet that TMDL issued in 2006. So I would just ask you to consider allowing the replacement of that paragraph with the content that provided to John, and it's on the page 9, I believe, of the
It's 8. It's 7 and 8, Betsy, which may be confusing people. It's 7 and 8.
It's 8 in the draft that you have before you today.
Yeah, well, okay, when I read it,
So can you, you're suggesting the change be in light of new or changing current requirements? That's the one you want to consider?
No, there's 2 paragraphs. However, current permit responsibility, that paragraph, and then the paragraph below it in light of new and changing permit requirements. One of the points of confusion is that it's a moving target and all of these pieces are not reconciled, and as a result, nobody knows what's going on. Essentially, that's the short version.
rather than just say, oh, you don't need this anymore, because you do.
Well, and with what you're saying, John, that nobody knows what's going on, I think that that's one really important reason to have people get together and meet and talk about what's going on. Because if you don't have a committee that meets and discusses it, the information doesn't get out to everybody, and it certainly doesn't get out to the public. And that's one of the programs that's required, is that the public gets the information.
It is a legal.
That's right for this and for the IRWM also.
Okay, I'd like to take a minute and have the record show that Jeff Smith has arrived. And do you want to come take a seat?
Actually, yes, I do, but I gotta check with Scott on something real quick.
Okay.
We have.
Stacey, I have a follow-up question. The paragraph that, Betsy, you're referring to, that I assume, which is why I'm asking, that the primary phrase that you are objecting to is the one that says, due to this change, there has not been a need. Is that there's not been a need?
Well, you know, this like I said, it's representative of a more profound lack of understanding of the program itself. It says the previous permit required the advisory council's review. No, it didn't. The previous permit required that the lead agency, lead responsible agency, and the 3 co-permittees file a notice of intent to comply. How they comply is up to the agency. So the people that are reviewing the permit at the Central Valley Water Quality Control Board, they only know that we have told them we're going to comply, and here's how, because we have an advisory council, we have a joint powers agreement, we have bylaws, we are going to take a multi-jurisdictional process approach to complying with the permit. State doesn't care if you have an advisory council.
Madam Chair, can I raise a point of order, please? There appears to be a conversation going on with your attorney, and it's rather distracting, and quite frankly, if it's a question of Brown Act compliance, I'd like to hear the attorney's answer to the question.
Okay, well, the conversation's over. Is there anything that you feel we need to say?
Well, it's nothing. It's just there's apparently a new member of the Board of Supervisors who's present in the audience, and I was simply explaining to Commissioner Smith that just because a person's a member of the Board of Supervisors doesn't prevent them from appearing as a private citizen as long as they don't attempt to meet and reach a collective decision with the other members of the board here.
Thank
He's
you.
not yet a member of the board.
He's not yet a member.
That makes
First Brown Act applies.
I understand.
Chair's not cool yet.
Betsy?
Yes.
And I'd like to make sure that what I'm going to say is correct, and you would have a better. The one thing about the fact of whether this requires it or not, the joint powers agreement requires it, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
The joint powers agreement that the cities in the county made require there to be meetings, and there's a lot of requirements that if you can't just have one of the joint powers members saying, well, we don't have to do this anymore because you've got an agreement with your other members that say, yes, you do. So that's not here. And I think that that's an important thing that everybody needs to know is there was an agreement made that is not this agreement, it's the joint powers agreement.
Correct.
And Denise, was your question answered?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So we're gonna, John, did you want to start going item by item?
I just want to deal with the issue on page.
Excuse me, do I speak from here, or?
No, you're going to come up.
Okay, may I?
Yeah.
I'm Scott Leone, the Water Resources Director. The question that I have on page 7, it says that there has not been a need for advisory council meetings. It's being suggested, I think, that we are proposing that we get rid of or stop the advisory council, which I don't read in the document. It's being inferred that the members, that we don't know what we're doing, and so we need to meet to figure out what we're doing, and I don't think that's accurate either. The bottom line is the state has a permit that they haven't defined, and it's a moving target. We've heard those terms used. We're still waiting on something from the state to give us some clear direction on how to proceed. And until we receive that information, we haven't seen the need to have the advisory council meetings. That's what the document says. So I don't read in here that we are disbanding or we're not going to continue with the advisory council. What I read is because the target's moving and nothing's been defined, we haven't had those meetings. Now, with respect to the proposed language, I don't have any issue with that. I don't see anything in the language that says anything that I don't think I think we would agree with. So I wanted to be clear that it's not the staff or entities that don't know what we're doing. We're looking for some direction, and we haven't felt the need to have the meeting.
Yeah, question?
Yeah, actually, since we're talking about this particular language on page 8, 7 and 8, I just want to bring up one thing that I have a problem with, and maybe you do too, Scott, I don't know, but at the bottom, this is on page 8, at the bottom of the paragraph that starts with the word however, it says, the district's scope of work includes implementation of the program management capacity under the direction of the multi-jurisdictional advisory council. And I don't believe that advisory councils give direction. I think advisory councils make recommendations. So I think that verbiage needs to be changed to say something like, with recommendations from the multi-jurisdictional advisory council.
Okay.
Deletion of the word direction.
May I address that, please? Madam Chair? This is the subject that came up in July of this year when Supervisor Rushing said that county council would have to address this because staff disagreed. We haven't seen anything from county council. I attempted to solicit a response from her. We've not received anything on that issue. And this has to do, yes, we had this very discussion 4 or 5 months ago. Does the council direct staff? I would urge you to look at the stormwater agreement and the bylaws because it allows the council to meet, make decisions, and then staff goes away and implements those decisions. It's not a specific, you do this and you do that. It is an agreement that's made on a continuous basis to implement the program. I don't disagree with anything that Scott said either.
Could you quote that section out of the JPA? Can you find that?
Sure, I'll do that for you.
Yeah.
I would point out, though, that the last sentence of the county's comments say, oh yes, you're right, that it is the district's scope of work, which in fact, other than the contents of the MSR we have now, is the only definition of the district's scope of work. And the actual agreement, again, those links are in that report to you, the stormwater agreement. And the bylaws for the advisory council tell you what they do and how they do it.
Question for maybe it's the chair, or Scott, or John. Who does the advisory council advise? It is an advisory council. Who is it advising? Is it advising the board of the Watershed Protection District? Is it advising the JPA? Who is it advising?
That would require looking at the precise language of the joint powers agreement.
That's what she's looking for. Okay.
And begging your pardon, but I don't understand why you guys haven't done that. This has been on your agenda for months. To actually look and see what the advisory council does and does not do, what it is empowered to do, and how it's
Betsy,
empowered.
we're asking a question. Do you have access to this?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm trying to get it. It's not letting me log on here.
Mike?
Mike, you know what it says? I read it, and I...
Mike Dunlap for the record. This microphone works. You want to try this?
That's the new one.
That one's new.
How about here?
Right.
I don't disagree with what Scott said necessarily, okay? But part of what the council is supposed to do in meetings and having a record is have access for the public. And if the council meets to say that the state has not clearly delineated to us what we have to do to be in compliance with the permit, that is a method for the city, the two cities and the county to convey to the public in that meeting that the state is not doing what it needs to do, and yet it is holding us responsible. Okay? Now, there are certain members of the public, and I include myself as one of them, that when I am given that information in that public meeting, I can then turn around and call the state and ask them why they aren't doing their job. We're not trying to imply that the county or the cities aren't doing their job, except to say that those meetings haven't taken place, and they have to take place in order to create the record that we can beat up on the state for not doing their job with. Thank you.
I have a for instance why I think that it's important for these meetings to go on and the kind of things that happen in these meetings. I used to be the Public Information and Outreach Committee Chair, and we did a cleanup in Lakeport, a lake cleanup. And we went to clean up on the creek, and we found out that there was a bunch of garbage caught underneath a bridge. The person who owned the property wouldn't allow us on the property to get that out from under. Not only was it caught underneath this bridge, but it was caught on what we came to find out was an illegal water line that they were running underneath this bridge. Now, if we had been meeting regularly with this group, we could have found out that actually the Watershed Protection District had the ability and the jurisdiction to be able to go on that property and tell this person that told us that our Department of Public Works couldn't. They had the ability to go on there and say, hey, look, we can go on your property, we can tell you that this is what's going to happen, and if you don't like that, we can arrest you. And we need to know that information. And we didn't. So I think that that's a really, no matter what the state says, that's us in our own town, in our own county, taking care of our own business and knowing from each other what our rights and responsibilities are.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. Any left over there?
Yes, I can tell you the agreement, the stormwater agreement on page 3, under section 2 is the district and party responsibilities. And in item G, it says each party shall be responsible for implementing the stormwater management plan within their jurisdiction as recommended by the advisory council and as adopted by the parties. Now, the bylaws say that there would be an annual event where the legislative bodies who are parties to the agreement will go to their legislative bodies and provide them an update of what they need to be doing. And in my 5 years of being involved with this, I don't believe that's happened. But I'm just saying, Ed, that in the course of events, of being involved in this and have reviewed all the minutes available online, what occurs isn't illegal. It's the groups came together, the legislative bodies met in February of 2002 and agreed to have this agreement made so that their advisory council could implement the programs. And it by default delegated that authority to the council through this agreement, which more explicitly says the advisory council is hereby created to make recommendations for overall program management and coordination, strategic planning, review, budget considerations, and conflict resolution with respect to the NPDES permit on behalf of all parties for the program. Advisory council recommendations adopted by the County Board of Supervisors and both city councils shall become binding upon all parties. You know, this is a tool you have, and what we've seen, as I said before, the staffs of the 3 jurisdictions, the community development departments, public works departments, roads departments, all of those groups of people have, in fact, been able to do their job until the new permit was issued, which adds another layer of management requirement. Everything's being done properly in your municipal good housekeeping, discharge detection, stormwater prevention, all those kinds of things within your staff at the old level of the permit.
Yeah.
So that language says exactly what I thought it would say, as it is consistent with other advisory councils, which is basically the advisory council advises the entities that have come together. It comes up with recommendations, and that the jurisdictions are then, it goes back to the jurisdictions, whether it's the boards or whatever, to vote on and implement. and we did hear Scott say that they are off implementing what they know to implement at this point in time, but that there's not clarity around what's next. Is that what I heard?
Did you have something?
Well,
It's not inconsistent. I mean, so the language says it's an advisory council.
yes, that's, the issue is, and Ed made this, it's, advisory councils do not direct and implement, they advise. And
They
that-
make recommendations.
They make recommendations, may or may not be adopted,
Yeah.
and that, so it is not under the direction. That's the difference.
So the commissioners in agreement, we'd like to change that word to recommendation?
Yes. Certainly.
Yes. Okay.
Would you like to also add a recommendation to ensure that staff goes back to their legislative bodies as created in their bylaws? Yes. Since they don't do that?
But it's already in
Because the
JPA.
bodies
already
don't
in the
do the
JPA.
direction to staff. Do you follow me? That step does not happen.
Commissioners? You want to add anything else?
Well, you just made a point, did you feel that that was redundant?
Well,
The JPA, if the MSR is saying that it's recommending that we look at the JPA to make sure that all the provisions of that all the entities are still in agreement with the JPA and that all of those provisions are being implemented. And I don't know that we need to duplicate the JPA and the MSR, but I think the MSR should refer to the JPA agreement and make sure that the parties are still in agreement and it's still being implemented.
But how many people read the JPA? That's the problem. I mean,
Well, that you're making a recommendation because you think it hasn't been read. I think it needs to be read if it hasn't been.
but nobody can make everybody read it. That's why you have to put it in more than one document so that people who read this document will at least know what's supposed to happen. The fact of the matter, I think what the public is saying here is the information is not being freely given, and that seems to be the problem. And what ends up happening is you end up not getting your public voting to give you the money to manage this watershed in the lake because they don't know what's going on, they're suspicious, and they don't understand. And apparently we don't understand because I sat on that city council for how many years and I don't remember anybody making any kind of report. So what we're saying is, why leave out information when you can be making things more clear to more people?
What would be the line that you would suggest?
Well, I agree with Betsy that it would be good if we said something here about the fact that there is supposed to be reporting that is supposed to happen annually to the 3 different members of the Joint Powers Agreement, so that at least the other LAFCo people will know that this is here, because if they're not meeting, if the advisory council isn't meeting, who's taking that information?
So the advisory council, you're suggesting that the advisory council produce the reports to the various jurisdictions?
As required by their bylaws.
I hear that,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to get to the language.
I see.
Well, it's actually fairly clear in the JPA itself. They have significant advisory responsibilities they're mandatory advisory responsibilities. It means that this committee has to act, but its actions are in the form of recommendations.
Right. Okay.
And,
So what we can say in our MSR is that we encourage the advisory council to step up and make its report. And
It's not meeting, it's nothing meeting.
well, that's right.
There's another reason why you want to do that, because the bylaws say that the council will work with the jurisdictional bodies to develop budgeting to implement the program, which also has not been done. And so you would expect, like any other program, any other large program, your staff would come to the legislative body and say, when you get ready to do your next budget cycle, you need to add this much more in there to implement this program. It has not happened, and it has no budget as a consequence.
Mike, did you want to add a comment of whether to add a sentence or not?
I'd like to make a comment that says, it sounds an awful lot to me like mission creep is happening in this room. Your responsibility today is to adopt a municipal service review. If there is an issue with the advisory council not doing what it's supposed to do, that's all you have to do. It's not your job to create the language to fix that problem today. That needs to go to the board of directors of the Watershed Protection District to say, you guys need to go back and get with the cities and make this happen. That's the only thing you need to decide whether or not you want to say. It's not your job to craft the language today. Please, let's not do that.
So we have a couple of commissioners that think it's redundant and Mike is basically saying the same. Does anyone want to add a sentence? We're ready to move forward? Okay, so let's move on to the next section.
Well, except that we're changing word direction.
Yeah, I think we
Where
made
is that at
correction.
specifically? The word?
Page
Last
8,
sentence.
last sentence, first paragraph. That one that you included with that.
The last sentence, the district's
The bottom of the,
The paragraph that starts
Under
with
the-
however,
under the recommendation.
the last sentence, the district scope of work includes implementation of the program management capacity under the direction. It would be under the, are you changing the word to?
Under the what?
Recommendation.
What's the word?
Recommendation.
Recommendation. Okay, and then in the findings, we'll put this in the bin, but Mike's comments should be, that last comment should be included in the findings later on.
Hi, did you have a comment on that?
Yes, Joan Moss. I took everything from the table, but I don't think I got the document that you're talking about.
Okay.
Do you have extra copies? It's not this one, is it?
No, it isn't.
No,
And it's not this one.
There's a public review binder there, there's copy there,
I can let her have mine.
and there's other copies floating
And
over.
I want to commend Betsy Kahn on the clean water report. I saw a copy of it on the third floor. I was very disappointed that there weren't other print copies. I guess there was one available in the library. I would have liked to see one at the law library. Ms. Cohen said that she's doing it on her own money, with her own money, making this monthly newsletter. I think that we should give her some funds so she can make print copies. Thank you.
okay. Okay, so
And it's
that,
right here?
Here.
Actually, the Department
Yeah.
of Water Resources does the printing.
Joan, Joan,
It's okay.
Joan.
he has one for you.
Joan, here's one.
It's okay.
okay. Moving forward, are we going to look at the next section in bold?
Yes, but before we get to the next section, in bold, I have a strikeout on page 13, where it's at the bottom of the page, the Board of Supervisors meets concurrently as the Board of Directors of the Flood Control Districts, as it does with other dependent districts, concerning items specific to the, Flood Watershed Protection District, to consider items specific to the Water Protection District. And this sentence, beginning with one alternative, would be to have separately identified those hearings. That sentence to the end of the paragraph should be removed.
Okay, does anyone have comment on that?
All of it's right. Pages 13 and 14.
Yeah, that continues to page 14, John.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, anyone from the public? Okay, John, what's the next item?
Page 17, there's a bold italic paragraph, page 17, about the middle of the paragraph, after the first full paragraph, which discusses the CAFR, the county's financial report, and the district doesn't have capital improvement plans, et cetera, et cetera. But nevertheless, the paragraph reads, nevertheless, as a separate legal entity, clarity as to the source and destination of operating revenues and expenses, along with the identification of the district's revenue requirements to meet specific permit requirements, could advance the public's understanding of district's operation. And that sentence should be added.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Matt, come on up.
Good afternoon, I'm Matt Curry, the County Administrative Officer. And I first want to thank the commission for carrying this over and allowing us to provide some additional information and corrections. Before I comment on that paragraph, I'd like to point out 3 minor corrections on this page, if I may. There's on the paragraph just above the bold paragraph, the second line from the bottom, there's a stray mark at having the, and then there's a little, I don't know, single quotation thing. Yeah, I think the track changes didn't pick up quite some of these things. And then at the end of that same sentence, it says, published separately from the CAFR would not. The word would is missing. So having the financial statements published separately from the CAFR would not provide any more transparency. And so the word would needs to be inserted. And then at the bottom of that page, at the very bottom before the footnote, the title of Budget Unit 8109 is Watershed Protection District. We failed to, it's no longer the flood control district. And,
John, did you get that last one?
No, what's the last one?
The Budget Unit 8109, what's the name of it?
Watershed Protection District.
Okay.
Instead of flood control, it's water conservation.
Yeah, it's the old
Where is it?
at the very bottom of the page.
Budget Unit
Oh, okay.
8109.
Thank you.
And just a brief comment on this paragraph. I really don't have any problems with it. I don't think that you know, we can try to accommodate some of this additional information in the budget narrative. Those of you who are familiar with the county's budget process, we have a narrative description of the various budget units that accompanies all the numbers. And some of this additional information we can include and incorporate in the budget narrative. I think we've made great strides through this process, the interest of the public in providing additional information in the budget document itself over the last couple of years, distinguishing, you know, what is county and what is watershed protection district, and providing information. And I think some of this information that is proposed here, we can incorporate that into our budget document without having the additional expense of a separate audit. I think any published audit is going to cost at least $5,000 more than just including it into the county's existing single audit document. And so that's, I think, how we choose to respond to that.
Okay. Thank you, Matt.
I do have a question of, what John read isn't what I've got here. Yeah, so the words that John read are not the words that was on my page 17.
Nevertheless, as a separate legal entity,
But then he went on and it wasn't the same.
I'll point it out.
Yeah, no, I've got the place.
Yeah, we
It's
have
just
it,
the
just-
words that you came out of
You
you.
mean I said something different than what
Than
was
what's
written?
here, yeah, so I just
That's
want
correct.
to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Okay, I was just wondering when.
No,
Okay.
I do have trouble with page
Okay,
numbers.
yeah.
So should we reread
I
the
think it should be
paragraph?
reread.
Yeah, I think you should.
Nevertheless, maybe I shouldn't be the one. Nevertheless, as a separate legal entity, clarity as to the source and destination of operating revenues and expenses, along with an identification of the district's assets and liabilities, cost of specific programs and services, and a statement of revenue requirements to meet specific permit requirements could advance the public's understanding of district operations.
That's the same one?
Yep.
Okay,
It's the
That's what he
same.
said.
yay. Any other comments on that paragraph? We can move forward? Okay. Joan?
I would like to know if we could get what amount of money the Watershed Protection District contributes and what it goes for, as opposed to the regular county budget. I believe that this bold paragraph wants clarity, and I would like to find out how much each division receives from the Watershed Protection District.
Thank you, Joan. Did you have a comment? No?
With the
Okay.
the Department of Water Resources.
Are you saying that you want more specific language in that paragraph?
Well, what I understand is this bold clarity as to the source of destination of operating revenues and expenses. And so down here, even though Budget Unit 8107 is up here at Water Resources Administration, I am understanding that Budget Unit 8109 is a watershed protection district and is part of the Department of Water Resources, but how much of the watershed protection district's funds do go into each of these categories? I want something I can understand, in other words. To me, the clarity is up here, and down here, if we had a numerical amount, it would help for clarity.
Okay, thank you, John. Matt, did you want to reply to that?
It's on page 22, there's a list on page 22.
Thank you. It's on page 21. Okay,
But I did have, but I had a question about that I didn't understand about this, is it talks about Budget Unit 107, but it doesn't appear in any of the tables. Am I missing something?
8107.
Am I saying
8107?
8107?
Yeah,
there's text about it. There's a lot of text about it, but I don't see it in any of the tables.
Yeah.
Get time to find
Please.
Why don't you hang out up here?
Get you a chair, Matt.
Okay, the answer to your question is actually provided in the paragraph just above the chart in page 22. It says the following table summarizes the district total revenues and expenditures for each of the individual budget units. Note that the Water Resources Administration budget, Unit 8107, is not included here to give a more accurate representation of the district's actual resources. And if you look at what 8107 in the preceding page, it explains the purpose of 8107. 8107 is for all the staff, the overhead, operating costs of operating the Department of Water Resources, which includes lake bed management and watershed protection district. So each of the individual other budget units, including lake bed management and 8109 and several of the smaller ones, they pay money into 8107 to support the staff and the overhead operating costs. And so what the authors of this study has chosen to do is exclude the expenditures of 8107, because in doing so it somewhat inflates the overall resources of the department.
So you separate the programs from the overhead and operation.
Exactly.
Right.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, now we want to forward.
Okay. On page 21, I have a comment about what we're talking about. The Watershed Protection District is referred to as a program and a division. And I tried to reconcile it, and I was maybe short of words or short of other alternative words, but I'm calling them entities. The district is an entity, the Watershed Protection District is an entity, the county is an entity, the Department of Water Resources is an entity, Public Works Department is an entity. They're separate from one another. And so that's what I want to do, is that the Department of Public Works does manage various entities. They do various functions, or whatever, maybe functions is another word. But it's not a function because it's not a function of the Public Works Department. It's an independent district. It's an entity. So that, if you go to the page of 21, it says two main divisions. I just said two entities rather than that, just to keep that clear.
You should probably scratch the has been. The Water Resources Department manages two entities.
Sure.
And delete has the word has.
Right.
Okay, we can
As possession.
eliminate a word. Going down to page 23, we have on the top of the page, under 3.6, a variety of, it says, the Water Resources Department administers a variety of programs and one dependent special district, the Lake County Flood Control and Water
Watershed Protection.
Watershed, I'm sorry, I'm doing that. Watershed Protection District. And so it does manage one dependent special district. I should say they manage it on behalf of the county, if you'd like, but that's what they do. It could be in another department. So anyway, that's the comment on page 23. Going down to the, I guess it's the third paragraph, the one that begins, as is often the case, you go down here and you talk about the district's website. It's not the district's website, it's the county's website.
You delineated that.
Okay,
Okay?
got it?
And then
LAFCo has it.
I'm just going on here until I can find another area I have in bold or strike out. Okay, well, it looks like we're down to the findings. Okay, we'll get to that and add Mike's suggestion earlier into these findings somewhere where it's appropriate. On page, the findings for the MS, or the determination. Okay, I have no comments on page 30 at all. On page 31, this is the notion that the district board should complete various enabling tasks, and as does the Upper Lake Water District or the Caleone County Water District, the fire districts, they do have operational bylaws, policies, standards, and procedures that's unique to the district. So I put there, note at the bottom, this determination supports the district's need to perform its management duties in a similar fashion as should other districts, both dependent and independent, as well as to provide credibility for potential grant funding agencies. Okay, I know that the CSAs and the county service areas in LAFCo San probably doesn't have it, but this would apply that maybe it's a good idea for those also. So that's a comment on 31.
Any comments on that? Anyone in public? 31.
31 more comments. Okay, moving to page 32. And we talked about the shoreline protection ordinance. And at that time, this is 3-11, and require, at the time of the first stormwater management permit issuance, and requires updating along with other or all authorities respective to the implementation of the permit. That's the way the water WQO 2014-01 has specific update standards. And that I just added that in, that the permit has these standards are specific.
Do you have to say or all, or could it just be along with other authorities?
I just wanted to make sure I meant everything.
Everybody? Okay.
So otherwise, that's the only reason I said it all. On 4.4, finding 4.4 is there's been this issue of, oh, should the Watershed Protection District have its own audit? Okay, that's fine, and we all know that if they have their own audit, that things would be clearer. But right now, it's not legally required. And so I added it at this time because you don't know what the state controller's office is going to do next year. They could add these to be in there. I say at the time of this, there's no audit requirement.
No independent.
No independent audit requirement.
Independent
I mean,
of the auditors.
All of the districts are.
Yeah, they do it along with the CAFR, but they should be separate from the CAFR.
Right.
Right.
So every district gets audited.
Every district gets audited. When I meant no audit, I meant no special specific.
Right.
Right, no independent audit.
Well, I mean, they are, back up a second, it is an independent audit of the county and the capital. Independent is the wrong word, I think. It's no separate special audit, but it's the audit is. It's included in the county's independent audit.
And you have it done by an outside agency, not by the auditor?
Listen to the guy who actually
Right.
did it.
But there's no specific requirement for them to do anything else.
Okay.
That's what this says.
I think what the difference is whether or not it is published under a separate cover. There would be no additional information. I talked to Kathy Salem, the county auditor controller, on this, and there would be no additional information. It would just be, the financial statements would be printed under a separate cover, and I think that's what you were, it's independent because it's conducted by a CPA firm, but it wouldn't be separately published under a separate cover. I think that's what some of the recommendations, previous recommendations were, is that we would have a separately published document, and that's going to cost a minimum of $5,000. I don't think we want to spend money on that.
I'm sorry. Is it possible, after the independent audit of the entire set of districts in the county, et cetera, that the county could produce a little report for the watershed protection district so that that information is called out to the public to see?
Yeah, I don't know why we couldn't just.
I mean, I'm just asking, it's not as part of the MSR, but I'm
yeah, I mean, as long as people recognize that they're accepting that, it's not going to have the cover letter from the CPA firm and all that addressing.
Paragraphs.
But I mean, we can easily pull out that section of the combined financial statements and
so it's,
make it more accessible.
Education.
Okay, so got that paragraph and that at this time.
It's fine. It's fine.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
please comment. We have a language barrier here. We understand that the table produced in the comprehensive annual financial report is adequate for the budget management system of the county administration. It does not explain, and would not if you separated it into a special gold-plated separate document, what the assets and liabilities of the district are. It does not explain the regulatory requirements and the costs of delivering those programs. It does not include a master service plan. It does not include a long-term budget that gives you the revenues that they're going to set aside for program implementation for future program requirements. That, to me, it is a budget, but it's only a dollar budget. It's not a quality budget that tells you what the cost is for prioritizing your choices under the budget. You may have 10 things you have to do this year, but you can only afford to do 5 of them.
I'm sorry, I don't think an independent audit would do that.
I agree with you. Well, a comprehensive audit, as would be done by in any corporation, would do that, comprehensive. Not just the dollar analysis. You can show the money coming in, money going out. You can't tell what it does, did, or owns.
Well, I mean, the paragraph does say, as a first step towards enhancing the understanding of the district's funds.
Sure.
Which leads us that, in the future, this may get expanded, but at this point.
Sure. Just so you understand, that's what we're looking for, not that they're illegally doing business,
Okay, anyone else on this paragraph?
Madam Chair, and I don't want to belabor this point, but we're asking the advisory council to produce a set of recommendations, which I assume would be using information that the advisory council would have. We're asking for an audit, which...
Who's asking the audit?
No. Hang on, I'm looking at the MSR now. The statement, Betsy, that you just made, I'm not understanding. There's no CPA firm that is going to do the kind of audit you just suggested. It has to come through the missile service review process, which we're doing right now, or it has to come through reports that are given to the Board of Supervisors. There isn't a CPA firm out there that's going to look at the goals of the organization and compare it to whether they, how much money was required to deliver. That's not what audits do. Audits look at the financial...
I'm sorry, I beg to differ. Red Bud Healthcare District CPA independent audit looked at all their policy documents, their contractual procedures, all of their assets and their liabilities to determine whether their procedures were appropriately protecting the revenue of the district.
It's a revenue-based audit, and I agree, they do look at assets and liabilities. That is included, yes.
Well, and policies and goals. I mean, those are
Okay.
stuff.
We're not going to debate this right now. Let's move forward.
Let's just use that last discussion and segue into section 6.3 on page 34. And I'm using the word forensic audit here, which I said we're looking for bodies. As per Susanna, for bodies. Okay, what I did was we made this assumption that the district is better off being underneath the county, kind of all along. Okay, so anyway, without a specific fiscal analysis, forensic audit, if any of you have a better term, and/or cost benefits study the efficiencies achieved through the district organization as a dependent district administered by the Department of Water Resources may or not provide cost savings which are critical to responsible utilization of district resources, albeit likely. I put that in there, it was my editorial comment. That, okay, it's likely, it's happening, but I don't know 100%. Okay, another governance structure option would be the transformation of the Watershed Protection District into an independent special district with a governing body separate from the Board of Supervisors. This option has several advantages and disadvantages, yet remain unknown in the absence of a specific financial analysis, forensic audit, or cost-benefit study. Further study of this and other options could be considered to determine if it would be cost-effective and beneficial to the programs and services offered as the district responsibilities continue to expand. Alternatively, prior to any new study, forensic audit, or analysis, it is recommended the district clarify its abilities to generate additional revenue and develop financial processes which are clear to the public and its decision makers. That's the comment.
So John, the one word specific fiscal analysis, you read it as specific financial analysis. Do you want it?
I meant
Fiscal.
fiscal.
Okay.
And John, also, the second line of that paragraph, achieved through is what it should be, but it says though.
Need a R.
Oh,
No R.
right, typos.
Yeah.
Okay,
Spell
commissioners,
checkers
any
don't catch it if
comments?
it's a real word.
Anything on that? Public?
I certainly agree with the conclusion, and I want to point out on page 23, it does say, the full extent and scope of the district services is often unclear to the general public, and explanation of the service of the purpose of each program are listed in the following table. And I confess I don't go to budget hearings, but it would be good if by next spring at the budget hearings, we knew what was done in each of these sections and how much grant funding we got and how much we need. For instance, this reclamation project, we've gotten a lot of grant funds, and all we get usually is a round figure of money, of funds, but to know what each department did. Clearly, TMDL compliance on page 26. What was done and how much did it cost? I think that that's what this gentleman is saying. And we send this into the state and federal government. I think that they will probably ask us to do this. But if we could do it ourselves, it'd be more responsible. Thank you.
Are you suggesting a change to that paragraph, Joan?
No, I'm just saying that this gentleman's conclusion is wonderful, and what the people here are asking for is a specific monetary amount and what accomplishments have occurred in each of these sections. Nothing is done yet, nothing has been done yet, but I think the state government and the federal government will want an accounting. It sounds like to me.
Of the full $381,000.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joan. Anyone else?
No, the whole $2.1 million.
Can we move on to commissioners? Oh, we have one more comment on that paragraph?
Yeah, just for the record, I'm Jim Steele, supervisor-elect. I have not discussed any of this with any of the other supervisors, so it's just public input.
Are you speaking on yourself, on behalf of your position, or as an individual?
As an individual. Thank you for the additional comment. So just as a person that has done some of this work in the past, watershed maintenance and protection, and in fact all over the state, when I looked at the service review, I saw missing components. And so my question is this. Is this the right place to put those missing components in, or are you going to have an additional review of what the Watershed Protection District does? There's a circular reasoning that goes on here, and that is that everything you've looked at is everything that the district should be doing. And so you're wordsmithing the document as to what it is, rather than perhaps what it should be doing. And so what it should be doing is actually put on the table with regard to the laws that require a certain amount of production by the district. So one of those things is to protect, for instance, the soils from farming, from running off, for flooding, and we know what those protections should be. Now, when you look at it from the standpoint of the lake, you're not protecting the watershed anymore for the purposes of the lake. You're protecting the lake from the watershed. And so you have to turn around and look back upslope and look to see what, in fact, are the criteria of that performance. And that basically is lake management, which is different than watershed management for the purposes of runoff. It's for the purpose of receiving water. So you have to have receiving water thresholds. When we were doing fisheries on the coast, for instance, we had to figure out what the thresholds of harm were to the fish. So
Okay, but I'm going to bring you back into this paragraph that we're very focused on right now.
Okay, I was trying to do this section. I thought you were through with that paragraph. You see, you don't have any place for an additional comment for this section.
Because we've been working on this for about a year.
I realize that, and I'm sorry for coming in late, but it's just that, here's the point. Is there going to be an additional place to add additional language so you can have these? I'm trying to establish the importance of having a threshold for the lake in this particular section somewhere, whether it's in this particular paragraph or another one. So what I'm saying?
Chair, I think I might be able to address this. So municipal service review is looking at the services the district has said it's going to do and whether it's doing them. I think it's probably possible to put in what it should be doing, but it seems to me where that belongs is actually in these advisory committee meetings where the recommendations would come forward to the jurisdictions who are actually doing the work.
Okay, so there is in my point. The advisory committees, without information, cannot advise.
But they're not going to get it from the MSR. The MSR gets the information from...
But can the MSR, and this is where the confusion was for me when I read this, can the MSR say that you're missing a requirement in your service to develop the information so the advisory committees can function?
What we're trying to do, Jim.
Yeah.
I know, and that's what I'm asking, because I don't see it in here. I don't see this as a recommendation. See my point?
Yeah, I do.
Am I the only one getting this? Or?
No, I understand. Now I understand where you're going.
Okay, that's what I was trying to say. And I didn't know what comment it should go to, but it seems that was the section.
I have a suggestion.
Okay.
And I know we were focused on that one paragraph.
Yeah, I understand.
We kind of moved off it, so, but I was looking at this, and, you know, there's a place in here where it says there's 5 major areas that the district works on, and it's got several pages of stuff on that. And under the 5th one, watershed stewardship, which is on page 27, is a project name called Watershed Planning. And in there it says Clear Lake Integrated Watershed Management Plan. I like that, Integrated Watershed Management Plan. Is anticipated to be updated in 2014, so better hurry up. But it says with the project led by the district. And it seems to me that that would be a place, if you're having an integrated plan, to put in just a sentence to point in the direction that Jim wanted to go, something like special consideration should be given to the impacts of the watershed on Clear Lake.
If the plan said that you should develop the thresholds of impact for the lake and then measure against that what's happening to the lake, make that in the plan, develop that in the plan, then you'd have something. But you have to have thresholds of impact. So you know when you see, like we just saw with all the floodwaters coming off and every creek you looked at was dirty, how much is that actually affecting the lake? Does anybody know? And that committee will not be able to tell you because you haven't established within your reporting structure or your plan what a threshold of impact is. And yes, it can be done. I've got 4 pages of notes myself just on what could have been done, so I'm thinking that there's a missing element, that is, you haven't established what's a concern. So
Okay,
someone
thank
there
you,
has to
Jim.
do that.
Can I just ask one question, Jim? Do you understand about the TMDL? Is that not a threshold that you would consider?
Yeah, the TMDL of 40% reduction against what, and how do you measure it?
The 73 micrograms per liter of chlorophyll A.
Yeah, but the problem is, you don't know whether that's an impact, yeah. Okay.
That's the threshold. Yeah.
John, do you have any comments?
No, I'm going to add a finding about the Clear Lake Advisory Committee, which has a little bit of what Jim was just saying. But let's go on to the next section.
Are you sure you mean that? The Clear Lake Advisory Committee?
I'm sorry.
That doesn't exist.
It's not the Clear Lake Advisory Committee.
That's a whole nother
Clean
meeting.
Water Program Advisory.
Program Advisory Committee.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to go on to section 4.
Yes. Okay. There's an area bold here. In addition, a local enabling ordinance should identify implementation measures, ensuring clarification of the district's obligations to meet local, state, and federal standards and regulations. And that is included in 64. Okay. Okay, I'll just do, and 6.5 as a component of the district's annual budget. The district should consider creating and continuously maintaining a work program component that clarifies its obligation for state federal compliance requirements. District priorities are currently a continuation of previously established workloads for the flood control district. Okay, and 6.6 is over the years, several advisory committees, subcommittees, advisory boards have been created. To enhance public involvement under its direction, the board of directors could consider centralizing district programs under the umbrella of an advisory council or body and be made continuously consistent with the current permit requirements and district operations. That's 6.6.
Okay, any comments?
When we go to 6.7 that we have, and it's recommended that the district staff regularly convene and facilitate, and I'll talk about that word in a minute. It is recommended that the district staff regularly convene and facilitate meetings of the JPA Advisory Council so that it may perform its duties as required by the Joint Powers Agreement. And when I say facilitate, who controls that process is really not it's not the district staff, it's the advisory council. I'm concerned about having an agency that has is a stakeholder doing this without an independent facilitator. But that's really up to the advisory council how they would like to handle it.
Shouldn't we say that?
Well, I mean, I think the advisory council knows
that.
I mean, we can say that if you'd like.
Maybe we should say what the we're asking the advisory council to consider. I mean, we're saying that the advisory council should consider meeting more frequently and providing the annual update. Or, I don't know. I mean,
well, it's required by the JPA.
That's required by the JPA.
May I come, please? The MSR's advice to the Board of Directors of the Watershed Protection District and the City Councils. The Board of Directors of the Watershed Protection District would direct the Watershed Protection District staff, and the Board of Supervisors and the City Councils would direct the Clean Water Program Advisory Council voting members and staffs to do what you just said.
Yeah.
You know, this doesn't go to the advisory council. This goes to the legislative bodies.
Right.
But the advisory council itself has its own responsibilities, which by letting itself not meet, I mean, the council itself has its own responsibilities to meet. I mean, does the council have a chair?
Yes, it does.
The chair has that responsibility to convene meetings. And it's as much the error of that chair in not convening meetings as it is for the staff.
It's staff, yeah, that's kind of.
That's right, but that chair is
staff
a
can remind
supervisor. It was, the link between the board of supervisors and the council is broken.
Well, but isn't that one of the points of
That's
saying
why
that
you're-
it should be somebody who is not a stakeholder who is responsible for this, so that you can't have one of the members of the council hold everybody else up by not convening meetings or by running the meeting in a way that is to their advantage rather than everybody's advantage? Isn't that what we're trying to say? In having somebody who's not a stakeholder be in charge of it?
Well, everybody in the county is a stakeholder.
Well,
It's a matter of not having a public agency
Okay.
elected representative. For example, why LAFCo has a public member
right,
is because that person is not a specific agency member.
right.
Is it true advisory council, much like the board of supervisors, any member of the board of supervisors can put something on an agenda and ask that the board meets if there's an urgent item? I'm wondering, well, I'm just wondering how we get to this. I don't think that you have an advisory council, if they haven't met because they didn't see the need to meet, they still have something in the bylaws that says they should meet. So I think the only thing we can say in the MSR is like, say in your own bylaws that you should meet. And whoever's the chair or the staff, they can facilitate making that happen.
Well, I mean, it all depends, of course, on the bylaws of the committee. And it's very important that those bylaws provide for this.
Right, which we've already asked them to do.
The JPA very specifically says they have to meet at least once a year to review the budget. That's very explicit in the joint powers. So.
Chainsaw.
There's not normally a meeting at this time, that's why they're doing it.
So, I mean, again, I think that the committee itself should review its bylaws and see how they're set up, or the council. And perhaps consider how it's functioning or not functioning. But it has responsibility. It's not just the agencies.
Mike?
Madam Chair, what he said, again, I'm going to raise the issue of mission creep. Your responsibility is to adopt a review and send it to the Board of Directors of the Watershed Protection District. They are one of the entities that makes up the council. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, so we're saying that we don't want to add what John said about recommending convening the meetings of the joint.
I think what we're hearing is that the language needs to be a bit broader and directed not only to the staff of the district, but to the entities and to the council itself.
Right. Okay.
So we can redraft it to make it apply in a broader way.
All right. So we're not just going to leave it out. We're just not going to be saying it's the district.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm hearing.
That's what I'd like to hear too.
Can I suggest
Sure.
that you are finding that the council has not met?
That's the finding.
That's your finding.
Or how they met.
Council hasn't met as prescribed in its bylaws.
There you go.
Right.
Well,
Mike,
When was the last meeting of the council? Does anyone know?
Not in living.
September 2013.
Okay, so that's what the finding is. The council last met September
September.
2013.
But we can't make a recommendation that says that they should.
okay, absolutely. I mean,
Yes.
Mike, perhaps you're misunderstanding. Part of the MSR determinations, one of our duties is to look at governance.
Right.
And this is a governance issue. And yes, absolutely, they have the authority to make a recommendation. We are merely a recommending body. And all we can say to these parties is, gee, according to the JPA, they're supposed to do this, this, and this. They haven't done those things. And therefore, they're not performing their governance functions in the manner that the parties contemplate.
Thank you.
So do we have that already written? Is that in
No,
6,
it's not written.
7?
It's on tape.
Yeah, right?
But I for one would like to see it added. I think it's really important, because there's going to be another group of people sitting up here who aren't going to know what we said unless it's written down.
Joan?
This is my last comment. On page 40 and 39 in the appendix, it mentions that the Clinic Advisory Committee's role is likewise a current permit requirement of the Clinic Aquatic Plant Management Plan. And it mentions the Advisory Committee also, and it also mentions the Resource Management Committee and the Coordinating Resource Managing Committee. And I just want to point out that the Board of Supervisors, to my knowledge, canceled these committees. So I think this might spur the Board of Supervisors to reappoint people and have another Clinic Advisory Committee meeting and Resource Management Committee. I know they were planning to find one and appoint one. The Coordinating Resource Management Committee, and that's on page 40 and 39. And maybe Denise Rushing has things that I don't know. Maybe you've done it when I haven't been there. But I think we are required to have one. According to this document, it's a current permit requirement. Thank you.
I think I can answer that question. I think that was a question. The board is appointing members in its January meeting to the RMC, and it has, in its meetings this year, has agreed that it would reform the RMC. The RMC has always been there, just hasn't met, and a lot of the jurisdictions that make up the RMC weren't attending the meetings, or they were short-staffed, so they couldn't send people. And we're going to raise that up a level to more senior management and ask that they re-up their involvement and send people. So the Board of Supervisors have already had the discussion this year, and will be appointing a board member to take on that.
So it's already happening?
Yes.
Great. So back to 6.7.
Thank you.
Do we have the verbiage written out that we want to approve?
And can we move on to other things, and I'll try to wrap something?
Yes. We'll come back to that at the very end. John, what's next?
Well, I don't have anything next to bring up in terms of any changes to what we have.
Okay.
I've already explained to you some of the provisions in the resolution. The end game to all this for LAFCo is to set the sphere of influence. Setting the sphere of influence, look at some of the options, is the same as the county boundary, larger than the county boundary based on watershed. We have to take into account the specific legislation and what does that mean in terms of LAFCo setting the sphere of influence. The resolution also talks about that the next, as the sphere is the next step, is that we need to put that into our work program for the next fiscal year and fund it and determine how we're going to accomplish this. Getting it into the work program, there's an outline needs to be, well, what are we going to do? And so we may need to convene, we may need to attend the JPA meeting, we may need to look, talk to all of the NPDES permittee agencies. And that would be all assembled into, this is what we're going to do, and then set the budget. And really, let's see here. Also, I might add that sometimes that between the time you do the service review, because you know it's as good as the day you adopt it, that there may be changes between now and next fiscal year, July, that those changes would have to be updated and placed into the sphere document somehow as required by our policy. So that's what I'm waiting. It's done in 4 lines.
I can take up a couple of minutes.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to talk to
As an experienced politician.
Let's let Scott come up real quick.
I just wanted to offer, also to use some time, but I wanted to offer just a couple of minor corrections if you're going to adopt this. I thought it was important to mention it. And I'm going to go back to page 24. I didn't want to interrupt all the discussion we were having. some of the budget units and funds on the project descriptor, the program descriptions, I'd like to propose some corrections to, and starting with number 3, the Middle Creek Marsh Ecosystem Restoration. That should be budget unit 8109 instead of 8108, and that'd be fund 200. Page 24.
Okay, John, do you want that?
Got it.
Okay.
Page 26, number 13.
Okay.
Budget unit 8107 should be changed to 8109, and the fund is 200.
Okay. John?
Got it.
Number 14, water quality monitoring program, same change, 8107, budget unit should be changed to 8109, and fund 200.
John?
Got it.
Okay.
And on page 27, items 17, 18, and 19, where there's a reference to the budget unit 8107, those should also read 8109.
All three are 8109.
That's correct.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you. Any other typos or?
There's one typo in the front. Your name is misspelled.
Unbelievable.
We have an article going on. NADP, correct?
Correct.
Oh,
2 T's.
two T's.
Yeah.
Why, do I have one then?
You know, I think that might have been my fault.
I see it. That was Betsy's fault.
Yeah. Blame it on me.
Okay, there's 2 T's.
Let's blame Betsy.
Yeah.
Yes, Ed?
I have a two-part question. First of all, I thought that the issue that Supervisor-elect Steele raised about actually saying something about not just protecting the watershed, but protecting the lake from the impacts of the watershed. I think that that's a really good idea, because it focuses attention on the lake and the stuff that's coming into it. I mean, we talk about erosion, we talk about this and that, but it's, anyway, I just thought that was a valuable comment. And I don't know whether anyone else feels that way. So that's the first part of the question, is do we want to put in a sentence? Because we're making recommendations, we can make a recommendation. And it doesn't have to be complicated or detailed. And then the second part of it would be, if there's enough interest on this commission, then where would we put it?
Any comments on that?
Yeah, first of all, I agree. I think I've said this somewhere. I'm not sure where yet. For a couple of reasons. One is the watershed isn't all under the control of the County of Lake, obviously. There's lots of other entities that are involved, including the Forest Service, which would encourage the Watershed Protection District and its board to, and the Board of Supervisors and the county to reconvene the RMC and get all those entities working together on the watershed itself. So just having a line item in there, I don't think, the municipal service review isn't going to cause it to happen, but it's going to highlight it. Second is it will give the county, I mean, we don't have in here, we aren't giving the county itself, and I'm not talking about the Watershed Protection District at the moment, but the county has taken a number of steps over the last decade, really, to look at the whole watershed, including the grading ordinance, the full circle project. I mean, there's been a whole series of things that have been, and by no means are they all working, and by no means are they enough, but there are many, many actions that have been taken. And so it would be good in the next municipal service review that happens for this district, maybe it's in, however many years it happens, that portion, the LAFCo would take a look at that portion and be able to outline the kinds of programs that have been contributing to success in that area. So I'd love to see that, as a private citizen a few years from now, I'd love to read that and find out all the things the county's been doing to make a difference along in the watershed.
Do you have a suggestion of the sentence or what?
Well, the sentence would, I think Supervisor-elect Steele had a suggestion for a sentence, which is basically, I'm trying to remember what he said now. Jim, do you have that?
Well, the service review should suggest to the Watershed Protection District that in fact the watershed philosophy, protection of the watershed should include criteria for the lake being protected from those impacts of the watershed. And those criteria should include monitoring performance data that would then be given to the committees so that they have something that they can review as to the performance of the district.
So maybe it's under section 3 in the, when we're doing findings, it would be a finding basically to say that, or a recommendation in a way that the district include the whole watershed.
May I comment, please? The two difficulties with this are that under the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board's TMDL Stakeholder Committee, memorandums of understanding between the federal, state, and regional local agencies to meet the TMDL requirements, you have that. And then the other group that's involved is the Central Valley's determination of your municipal your storm sewer systems within which your stormwater management program occurs. They have not come to a decision about what that boundary is. We don't know. Those two different boundaries have to be reconciled for the Watershed Protection District to understand where it needs to deliver services and where it does not. So
maybe just a line that says that
So there has to be some way of you suggesting this, and this is their performance criteria. So how would you tell any agency, not agency, but group that's going to advise you what it is, how well you've done? You've not delivered them any numbers. And that's what I've seen with the Watershed group that has advised the board. They haven't said, here's what you ought to do because your numbers are bad. There's no numbers discussed. That's a real weakness in this whole thing. And I didn't know when to put this in, and I know I'm late with all of this because I just now read it. But I see this as a performance criteria problem. They don't understand the performance criteria business.
Okay. So would the recommendation be to evaluate the performance criteria and come up with
We have to collect data.
this has been going on for 20 years. Is collecting data and trying to understand who does what to who and which program has which criteria. 20 years.
Yeah, there ought to be some effort to fix that, I guess, if that's the case.
The three jurisdictions need to have a clean water program review, figure out whose job it is to do what part in the watershed. Is it stormwater, floodplain, municipal street sweeping, whatever it is, and determine how you're all going to address one set of problems. And I agree with Jim on that. But, oh no, please let's start that old thing about, we don't know where we're going to get the data. Well, we have data.
Yeah, and actually data are easy to collect. You had a whole opportunity to collect data. You could have been driving around the watershed and you'd had all the data you wanted to have.
Okay, understand, Jim?
Not to add another monkey wrench, and I appreciate this.
This is important.
In South Canada, we have another issue that Ed would be very familiar with, and that is the Pewter Creek drainage direct with Singalina Creek. That is, the upper reaches are administered by the County of Napa.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. It's the same situation. Mm-hmm. And it isn't floodwaters, it's the lack of water. And that needs to be incorporated also, same situation. How do we do that? Probably through the advisory.
Advisory,
yeah.
If they were meeting,
that's where that needs to be.
Be.
That's what that needs to be.
And
We're getting into the weeds. That's exactly what needs to happen.
Right, here comes the boss.
I've had my hand up for a while, so I'll just walk up to the microphone. I could not agree with him more. What he just said are the magic words. South County, it doesn't have anything to do with Clear Lake. Exactly.
But
It
the
is
district does.
the Watershed Protection District you are addressing yourselves to. What lake are we talking about? Indian Valley Reservoir? You know? We're talking about the one over the hill that goes into Eel River? We're talking about Blue Lakes? This all has to be addressed by the Watershed Protection District. If you want to tell them something, tell them to address it. That your finding is that after 2 years of having a committee work for you, we haven't been able to find them doing this. That's the sentence. We've spent 2 years looking for evidence that they were doing this, and we haven't found the evidence. That's all you got to tell them, folks. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that this goes back to what Jim just said, that we were talking about a 6.7 that would recommend convening and facilitating meetings of the Joint Powers Advisory Council, and this is exactly where this should be coming out of, not here. But if we make the recommendation that they start meeting, that this is what their job is to be looking at things like not just the lake, but all of it. And that's their job. And then to bring it back to the 2 cities and the county who are the members of this authority and go, these are our recommendations of what you look at next. So I think the really important one is to get 6.7 in there.
Denise, did you write a sentence?
No, but I do have a question. I'm going to agree. So 6.7 I think is where it's at, and let's just leave it there. But I do think it is LAFCo's job to figure out the boundaries of the district. And the watershed does not include Lake Pillsbury. That goes into the Eel River watershed. Cuda Creek?
The county?
The adopted
We've got
spheres
3
that
watersheds
counties
in Lake
boundary.
County. Is this watershed protection district covering all 3 or
It's
just one?
county line from the
Right.
county line.
Currently the county line.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's the
so then,
adopted
so
sphere.
then it's all 3.
Yep.
It's our contribution to each of the 3 watersheds and our contribution to 3 integrated watershed management plans, right? It's not-
Unless you want to reduce the sphere boundary to the watersheds
Yeah,
that
got
are
it.
appropriate
So that
for
was my
delivery of district services.
There you go.
Because
That was
we
my
don't deliver those in the Eel River watershed.
No,
No,
you're
we
talking-
would send somebody to those meetings if we did. Because
Let's just change the sphere of influence, please.
But that's why the sphere is so important,
Yeah.
between the TMDL requirements, the other issues on the watershed
Right,
compliance.
well, we're not
with
doing
permits.
that sphere today, but
So
that's
it's
my,
relevant to
get it on the work
our
group.
next step.
Yeah.
but
And now we
that's
see why
my
it's so
point, is
important.
that TMDL is not affected by grading that goes on Lake Erie and Pillsbury, that's going into another
Wonder we
watershed.
need to get closer to the mic because the lady can't hear us.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay.
So
That was my
that is the
question.
key issue, Denise, that's why the
Yeah.
sphere is so tricky.
Yeah.
You can't- It's got different pushes and pulls.
3 watersheds.
3 watersheds, 1 boundary, 2 regional water quality control boards.
Okay, so,
Yeah,
So 6.7.
that is my question, but I don't think it's relevant until you all take up this sphere.
Yeah.
So we want to just wait until we do the sphere
To do what?
There's no language.
recommendation.
What, the recommendation for
The
the,
recommendation is y'all have to sit down and figure out what you're doing.
6.7.
That's the recommendation.
6.7.
We haven't done that yet. Yeah.
6.7, I'm pushing for that 6.7 to be in here.
I'm ready with that. Yes, you're very good at filling the time.
Get violent agreement.
Took any longer than this, we'll send you back to law school.
please.
Okay. The proposed section 6.7 that I drafted is to improve the governance and accountability of the district. The district staff, council members, and joint powers members are encouraged to comply with the joint powers agreement and regularly convene meetings of the council, the advisory council, and provide adequate support to the advisory council so that it may perform its important advisory review and recommendation functions.
That's pretty good.
I like
I like it.
Somebody needs to move it.
Oh, we need to add it. I would-
Yep, move
So
it.
is everyone in agreement?
We do by consensus to just add it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Deal.
Because
You
we'll
got
be
consensus?
voting on it.
right.
Done.
So we've made changes throughout, a few minor changes, and we've added the any public comment, Jim?
But when you're done with that one, I was just going to suggest you could modify that language with just a couple of points, and you could take care of the other issue that Ed brought up. And that is that they're encouraged to include plans for monitoring that would be specific to the lake impacts and performance monitoring, so that they could provide information to the advisory council so that they could then determine if in fact the district is functioning properly.
Okay, I think we decided we're going to wait for anything like that. Am I right? Okay, any other public comment? Okay, John, anything else that you want to add before we close the public hearing?
Not at this point. We'll be dealing with some of these issues during the SPEAR process, I'm sure.
Sure. Okay, so last call for the public hearing. Anyone? Are you sure? We'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commissioners. Discussion?
I think we worked this one around pretty good, especially already.
Madam Chair, I'd like to thank the committee for their hard work. And
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We could not have done it without you.
Well, we so appreciate your patience, because we do believe this is the nut to crack for Lake County's economy and ecological restoration.
Yeah, thank you for your work. It's not always been easy.
So we have a resolution to consider with some amendments.
You're looking for someone to offer the resolution?
I'm ready.
I will offer the resolution assuming that we have captured the amendments by consensus as we have gone along, and the corrections. So I'll offer the resolution with that in mind.
Do we have a second?
You don't need it.
You don't need to say, you just
Yeah, you just need to call a roll.
All right, so roll call vote?
Oh, I'm the...
Someday you'll hire someone.
And
John was dreaming that there is actually somebody in that chair.
yeah.
They're not there.
The council's advised me to stand. Commissioner Roby?
Aye.
Commissioner Gillespie? Aye. Commissioner Lustow?
Aye.
Commissioner Mattina?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
Aye.
Commissioner Rushing?
Aye.
Commissioner Comstock? I
Aye.
did it out of order because
Close enough.
Commissioner Mattina should have been last.
So, that's okay.
Aye.
Sorry.
Aye.
Okay, so we have adopted the resolution. Congratulations, everyone. Okay.
Well, the committee that's been working on this forever, now that we've adopted the MSR, do we need to take any action regarding the committee, or do they just automatically,
We want a party.
are they?
Yeah, we want
We spent the whole budget, so we can't throw you a
All I'm
party.
really saying is, do we need to take a formal action to dissolve the committee, or does it happen automatically?
We'll go away.
How on the agenda is it?
Well, that's a legal point.
This is on the
Actually,
agenda.
you know, if you buy a big enough keg, we'll dissolve our own.
Okay.
This was an ad hoc committee for a specific purpose. That purpose is until the committee itself, by its own terms, ceases to function.
Okay.
There you go, Mike, you're free man.
Free of that, free of this.
But I'd like to reserve the right to utilize them in the future.
Hey, wait.
Deal. All right, we're going to move on. The executive officer's report. Anything today?
I'm going to go quick. The RCD consolidation is on hold due to a grant matching issue between federal funds. So don't ask more, just stay tuned. The next is I still want a clerk. I desperately Lakeport is circulating a draft EIR right now on the to their general plan, which is addresses a lot of the comments that were presented during the LAFCo sphere update a couple of years ago. So that is occurring. And one last thing is, this is Denise Rushing's last meeting, and I think we should all give her Congrats, sir.
You can have the first beer out of the keg that Ed's getting.
All right, thank you, John. Anything else? Okay, commissioner reports? Anybody have anything? So we will adjourn to LAFCo next.
I know this isn't a commissioner
Oh,
report.
and I skipped correspondence.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one question. Did we do anything about saying that we were putting the sphere of influence for the Watershed Protection District on our work plan for next year? Did we actually say that?
It's in the resolution.
It's in the resolution.
Perfect,
It's
okay.
in the resolution. I looked for that.
Right, good.
Is there any correspondence?
Christmas cards, that's it.
Oh, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all.
Merry
To all.
Well, good night.
Happy solstice.
All right, so now we will adjourn to LAFCO's next regular meeting Wednesday, January 21st,